Hi, welcome to Reaseheath Mini Zoo. My name's Hannah and today I'm going to talk to you all about poo. So as you can see, we have quite a lot of it here at the zoo, and this is pretty empty actually for a normal day because we're filming this in the morning, so it does get really full up. So everything poos, from our invertebrates like our cockroaches to our big tapia. It's our lovely keepers' jobs to clean that up and make sure that our enclosures are all smelling and looking fresh. So what is poo? So poo is the waste products from the food we eat. So we eat the food and our body takes away all the things that we need to survive from that food and then gets rid of what we don't need in poo and urine. And today we are going to go and have a look at different types of poo around the zoo because surprisingly you can find out quite a lot about an animal and its health from its poo. So should we go and see what we can find? Here we are with our biggest poo. So this is our tapia paddock, and they share it with a capybara as well. But the capybara do their poos in the water. So this I know is Timmy, our tapia's poo. And this wins the prize for the biggest poo in the zoo. And as you can probably see, there's quite a lot of what looks like hay and straw in there. And that's because Timmy is a browser and a grazer, which means that he eats leaves and fruit off trees. And he also grazes as well. So we give him hay, but in the wild he would eat stuff off the floor of the rainforest too. So Timmy is a herbivore, and that's why his poo looks like this. And different herbivore poo does look different, but you can tell what he's been eating by looking in his poo. In the wild, tapir poo is really important because what it does is it disperses seeds of trees and fruit around the rainforests and creates new trees and new plants. So they are great seed dispersers. And what they do in the wild is they have something called a latrine. So they're quite tidy animals. So they always poo in one pile, so it keeps it kind of tidy. And obviously that pile of poo then gives them the seeds in the poo that the stuff that they've eaten, fertilizer too. So it's really good for helping stuff grow. Okay, so now we're here in front of our serval enclosure. So George is just curled up asleep in the box down there. And George is a carnivore, which means he only eats meat. So carnivores have a different type of poo to what we've just seen. So they haven't got bits of grass and stuff in them because they don't eat it. So what they have in their poo is sometimes fur, bone and feather. So depending on what they've eaten, it sometimes comes out in their poo, and you can see what they've been eating in the wild, or in the zoo you can see what we've been feeding them as well. So like your cat at home, George buries his poo and wee in the wild, and he does it here as well to an extent. That's because cats use poo and wee for communication and marking their territories. So it's a really important tool for them in the wild. And where George lives in Africa, there are dominant cats that live there too, like lions and leopards. And you don't want to make one of those cross. So that's why they bury their poo in the wild as well. Whereas more dominant cats, like the lions, will just leave it out in the open to say to all the other cats in the area, hold off, this is my territory, keep out. Because little cats like servals don't want that confrontation with lions or leopards. So I'm in here with some of our birds. So we've got our pair of kookaburras here. They're being very brave because they don't usually stay here like this. So we're lucky that you can see them today. And I'm just in here because I wanted to talk to you about bird poo. So bird poo is a bit different. Everybody thinks it is just poo. But actually it's poo and kind of wee combined, because birds don't actually wee. What they do is they eat their food and they process it, and then they get rid of all the waste in one product. So that's why there's white and a little bit of black in bird poo when you see it, because the white is something called uric acid, which is their form of wee, so it's like a thick paste. Because birds need to stay light when they're flying, and you might often see a bird take off and it poop because it needs to get rid of that extra weight for it to take off and for it to fly effectively. And so what they've done is they've adapted to not carry excess water. So that's why they don't wee like we wee. They use this thick paste called uric acid instead. And then they have that bit of poo in there as well. So reptiles do this too. So they have uric acid rather than urine as well. So you might see in reptile poo that there is some white and some darker stuff too. So here we are in our raccoon dog enclosure, and these guys win the prize for the smelliest and the neatest poo. So these guys are omnivores, which means that they eat meat and plant material. And in the zoo we give them things like fish, eggs, they get meat, and they also get fruits and vegetables as well. See, they're quite curious little animals. And I'm stood here next to their very smelly latrine. And what they do, the same as the tapir, they poo in one place, the furthest point away from their bed. So their bed's all the way over there, and they've done their poo over here. So they all poo in one place. So it's very easy for the keepers to clean up in here because they just have to scoop up here and then they're done, apart from the inside bit. But it's very convenient. In their poo, you might find things like bones, or you might find things like beetle cases and things like that in the wild, because we do feed them insects as well. And when you have a bit closer look at it, you can have a look and they see it's all different colours, and that's because they have different things on different days. So white poo might be because they've eaten bones and there's a lot of calcium in their waste, and then the other types of poo might be because they've had fruit or vegetables on that day. So that's why it's different colour as well. So shall we go and have a look at another smaller herbivore in the zoo and see what their poo is like? So I'm here with some of our guinea pigs, and I'm going to give you one of the grossest poo facts for this one. So guinea pigs and other animals in the animal kingdom, like rabbits and capybara and some other animals too, they actually eat their poo. Bit gross, right? But it does a really important job for them. So this poo here that I've got, they are normal poo pellets. So what they do is, that's their waste product. So what they actually do is they have two types of poos, and the other type of poo they eat. So some animals, like guinea pigs, can't chew and digest the fibrous food that they eat properly, because they eat things like hay and other plant materials. And so what they do with that second type of poo, they eat it again, and they get all the nutrients that they missed the first time, and then they turn it into the waste product. So our capybara and our mice here at the zoo do the same thing. So you might notice I am actually touching this poo, but I have got gloves on because I don't want to pick anything up from the animal poo. And the reason I'm telling you this is because you can actually do a poo hunt too. So like I said, all animals poo, and that means British wildlife as well. So when you're out on your walk, you might spot some poo. I mean, it might be dog poo, but you should be able to tell what animals left that behind by some pretty defined features. And you can find some really good ID guides online. So you can find out what wildlife lives in your area by looking at the poo that you find out on your daily walks. I hope you've enjoyed this stinky video and you've taken away some interesting points about poo, which you might look at in a completely different way now.